welcome to Springfield Career Insights. Tonight, we peel back the glossy brochures and diplomatic slogans to ask a difficult question. Is Africa truly open for business or merely open for paperwork? From registration delays to licensing labyrinths, the promise of entrepreneurship is often buried beneath procedural fatigue. In this episode, we explore what does ease of doing business really mean when timelines stretch into years? What dreams are deferred? What investments are lost? And what reforms remain cosmetic? Joining us is His Excellency Dr. Godfrey Gandawa, President of Springfield Research University and Continental Strategist. His insights into regulatory reform and institutional agility offer not just critique, but blueprint. Welcome, President. We're honored to have you.
Thank you, Advocate, for the generous introduction. At Springfield Research University, we believe that transformation begins with truth, spoken boldly, structured wisely, and carried with compassion.
Thank you, Professor. If registration takes 6 months and licensing another 12, what exactly is easy? Let's begin with your journey. What drew your attention to Eswatini's business climate in the first place?
Thank you, Advocate. Let us begin not with critique, but with curiosity. Because my journey into Eswatini's business climate did not begin with frustration. It began with fascination. I was drawn by the promise of a nation poised for enterprise, a kingdom rich in culture, anchored in peace, and brimming with untapped potential. I saw a canvas ripe for innovation, ready for industrialization, yearning for sovereign entrepreneurship. But what I found was a runaway. It was a maze. I found registration processes that stretch across seasons, licensing procedures that outlast ambition, bureaucracy that does not facilitate. It fatigues. And yet, the rhetoric remains: Eswatini is open for business. Open, perhaps, but not accessible. Because if registration takes 1 year and licensing another 36 months, what exactly is easy? Is it the waiting, the wandering, the whispering through corridors for signatures that never arrive? This is not just inefficiency, it is economic erosion. It is the slow bleeding of entrepreneurial spirit. It is the quiet exile of innovation. And so, my journey became a mission to recalibrate, to advocate for procedural dignity, to architect systems that do not punish initiative, but protect it. Because Eswatini does not lack potential, it lacks process. And if we do not fix the process, we will continue to find frustration while exporting opportunity. Let us begin the recalibration.
Thank you, Professor. When we talk about ease of doing business, what does that really mean on the ground for entrepreneurs?
Thank you, Advocate. Easy of doing business is not a slogan. It is a system. And the systems must be felt, not just filed. Because on the ground, for entrepreneurs, easy is not measured in brochures. It is measured in breadth. It means walking into a government office and walking out with a registration, not a receipt for delay. It means applying for a license and receiving it before your ambition expires. It means knowing the rules before you break them and knowing the cost before you commit. Easy means clarity. Easy means speed. Easy means dignity. But today, in Eswatini, easy is elusive. Entrepreneurs wait for months for registration, a year for licensing, and eternity for feedback. They navigate corridors of silence, systems without signage, and processes that punish initiative. And yet we say we are open for business. Open perhaps, but not accessible. Welcoming perhaps, but not walkable. True easy means that the entrepreneur is not treated as a suspect, but as a sovereign partner. It means that government does not just regulate, it facilitates. It means that paperwork does not become a prison, but a passport. Because every delay is a tax, every silence is a sanction, and every unclear process is a closed door. So when we speak of easy, let us speak with precision. Let us legislate it. Let us audit it. Let us feel it. Because if the entrepreneur cannot breathe, the economy cannot grow.
Thank you, Professor. From your experience, what are some of the most frustrating hurdles that business owners routinely face?
Thank you, Advocate. Let us speak plainly. Because entrepreneurs do not suffer in silence. They suffer in systems. The most frustrating hurdle is not competition. It is confusion. Not market volatility, but procedural invisibility. Not failure of ideas, but failure of access. But business owners face registration processes that stretch across seasons, licensing regimes that require not just patience, but pilgrimage. They face forms without guidance, offices without signage, and officials without agency. They are told to submit without knowing where, told to wait without knowing how long, told to comply without knowing what law governs their trade. And while they wait, their capital depreciates, their ambition deflates, their innovation expires. They face systems that do not speak to each other, ministries that do not coordinate, policies that contradict, and portals that promise digital easy only to deliver analog delay. They face inspections that arrive without notice, fees that change without logic, and penalties that punish initiative instead of protecting it. And yet, we call this easy of doing business. No, Advocate. This is not easy. It is erosion. It is the slow bleed of entrepreneurial spirit. It is the quiet exile of sovereign enterprise. Let us not just support business, we must scaffold it with clarity, with urgency, with dignity. Because the entrepreneur is not a petitioner. They are a partner in national development.
Thank you, Professor. How do these bureaucratic delays shape or shake investor confidence in the country?
Thank you, Advocate. Investor confidence is not built on promises. It is built on process. And when that process is slow, silent, or scattered, confidence does not grow. It evaporates. Bureaucratic delays do not just inconvenience, they indict. They signal that the system is not ready, that the economy is not agile, that the government is not listening. Because no investor funds uncertainty, no entrepreneur builds on ambiguity. No visionary waits 12 months for a license while competitors move in hours. These delays do not just shake confidence, they shatter momentum. They turn Eswatini from a destination into a detour. They convert interest into exit. They transform potential into paralysis. And the tragedy is not just economic, it is reputational. Because every investor who leaves does not just take their capital. You see, they take a story. A story of inefficiency, a story of missed opportunity, a story of a country that could not. And I mean, a country that could, but didn't. We must understand bureaucracy is not neutral. It either scaffolds enterprise or suffocates it. It either facilitates growth or funds frustration. If Eswatini is to attract sovereign investment, it must legislate procedural dignity. It must digitize with urgency. It must coordinate with clarity. It must audit its own silence. Because confidence is not a mood. It is a metric. And right now, the metric is blinking red. Let us recalibrate. Not just for investors, but for the integrity of our own ambition.
Thank you, Professor. Can you share any real-life stories that illustrate just how long registration or licensing can take?
Thank you, Advocate. Let us move from theory to testimony. Because behind every static is a story, and behind every delay, a dream deferred. I know of a young entrepreneur who sought to open a renewable energy consultancy, aligned with Eswatini's climate goals, ready to partner with rural communities, posed to generate jobs. He submitted his registration in January. By August, he was still waiting. The application is pending. By December, he was exporting his idea to Botswana. Now he is operating in Botswana. I know a woman who built a farming and processing facility locally sourced, regionally scalable, fully compliant. Her licensing took 14 months, not because she lacked documentation, but because the documents kept moving from desk to desk, from silence to silence. And by the way, she's now operating in Zambia. I know of a cooperative that wanted to formalize its operations in agritech. They waited 6 months for registration, then another year for licensing. By the time approval came, the market had shifted, the funding had expired, and the members had scattered. And I know Springfield itself, an institution built for continental transformation. It applied. It met the minister. It waited. The board did not reject. It ignored. And while Springfield offers degrees in forestry and supply chain, the board funds diplomas abroad. While Springfield teaches in purpose-built facilities, the board funds institutions operating in storefronts. These are not just delays. They are deterrents. They are not just procedural. They are political. They do not just slow progress. They export it. And every time a license takes a year, Eswatini loses a builder. Every time registration stalls, Eswatini funds frustration. Every time silence replaces feedback, sovereignty is postponed. Let us not just tell stories. We must legislate solutions. because the entrepreneur is not a petitioner, they are a partner, and their time is not a donation, it is a declaration.
Thank you, Professor. Is there a gap between what policy promises and what actually happens in implementation?
Thank you, Advocate. Yes, there is a gap. And it is not a crack in the pavement. It is a canon in the system. Policy speaks in vision. Implementation whispers in compromise. Policy promises speed, clarity, and access. Implementation delivers delay, confusion, silence. We draft frameworks that sparkle with ambition, easy of doing business, digital transformation, entrepreneurial support. But on the ground, the entrepreneur waits 6 months for registration. The investor waits for a year for licensing. The innovator waits indefinitely for feedback. This is not just a gap. It is a betrayal. Because policy without implementation is poetry without paper. It is a promise without a pathway. It is a governance without gravity. We must understand the credibility of a nation is not measured by what it says. It is measured by what it delivers. And when delivery is delayed, diluted or denied, trust erodes, confidence collapses, and sovereignty is postponed. Eswatini must bridge this canyon. We must legislate timelines, not just intentions. We must digitize systems, not just slogans. We must audit implementation, not just announce reform. Because the gap is not just procedural, it is existential. And if we do not close it, we will continue to fund frustration while exporting opportunity. Let policy be a promise, and let implementation be the proof.
Thank you, Professor. You have spoken about discretionary power in regulation. How does that play out in practice?
Thank you, Advocate. Discretion, in theory, is meant to be a tool of flexibility. But in practice, it becomes a theater of unpredictability. It is the space where law ends, the mood begins. In Eswatini's regulatory landscape, discretionary power plays out not as facilitation, but as filtration. It decides who waits and who walks, who is delayed and who is delivered, who is questioned and who is quietly approved. It is not governed by statute. It is governed by sentiment. And that sentiment is often shaped by proximity, politics, or perception. One entrepreneur submits identical documents to 2 different officers. One is told, you are missing a form. The other is told, you are good to go. Another is asked to return next week, not because the system requires it, but because the officer is not in the mood. A third is told their license is under review for 8 months. No feedback, no rejection, just silence. This is not regulation. It is roulette. Discretion becomes a gatekeeper, not a guide. It becomes a bottleneck, not a bridge. And in that bottleneck, innovation suffocates. We must understand, when regulation is not anchored in clarity, it becomes a current. And when discretion is not audited, it becomes a weapon. A weapon for those that we don't like. Eswatini must legislate procedural dignity. We must codify timelines, publish criteria, and digitize decisions. Because the law must not whisper, it must speak. And the entrepreneur must not guess, they must know. Discretion must serve the law. not replace it.
Thank you, Professor. What kind of impact do these delays have on youth-led startups and small businesses trying to get off the ground?
Thank you, Advocate. Let us speak of the youth, not as a demographic, but a declaration. Because youth-led startups are not just businesses, they are blueprints. They are the first breath of sovereign innovation. They are the pulse of a nation trying to rise beyond rhetoric. But what happens when that pulse is delayed? When registration takes 6 months and licensing another 12, the startup does not just stall, it suffocates. The idea does not just pause, it perishes. The youth does not just wait, they walk away. These delays are not procedural, they are personal. They erode confidence, they exhaust capital. Imali iyaphela. They extinguish momentum. A young entrepreneur with a fintech prototype cannot afford to wait a year for approval because the market moves in minutes. A small business with a food innovation cannot survive 12 months of silence because the shelf life is not symbolic. A cooperative of graduates with agri-tech solutions cannot wait for assessment because the soil does not wait. And so, Eswatini loses more than time. It loses talent. It exports ambition. It funds frustration. We must understand, youth-led startups are not fragile. They are urgent. They do not need sympathy. They need systems. They do not need applause. They need access. Let us not just speak of youth empowerment. Let's legislate it. Let us digitize registration. Let us codify licensing timelines. Let us create sovereign startup corridors where innovation is not delayed but delivered. Because every delay is a denial. And every denial is a decision to postpone the future. Let us choose differently.
Thank you, Professor. Let's take a break and listen to a song called Pathways of Tomorrow.
In the heart of Springfield, where dreams take flight, we master the art of planning day and night. Strategic vision, supplier ties so strong, inventory in control, we can't go wrong. Springfield's future, bright and grand, with logistics, we take command. From warehousing to orders, we pave the way. Sustainability and growth here to stay. Risk mitigation, we face with might. Warehousing wonders, distribution in sight. Order fulfillment, every step precise. Optimizing flows, we break the ice. Springfield's future, bright and grand, are opening to a world so grand. In STEM fields, we proudly stand. Innovation and knowledge are guiding light. Springfield's degree, our future bright. With passion and drive, we rise above. In logistics and supply chains, we find our love. Springfield's future, bright and grand. With logistics, we take command. From warehousing to orders, we pave the way. Sustainability and growth here to stay. Together we conquer, no challenge too steep. Springfield Research University, our guiding star. In the world of logistics, we'll go far.
Welcome back. Let's continue with our discussion. If you had the mandate to fix registration timelines, where would you start?
Thank you, Advocate. If I were, imagine someone who owns the country comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm giving you 5 hours to fix this, fix it." This mandate, I will fix registration timelines. I would not begin with paperwork. I would begin with philosophy, because delay is not just a technical flaw, it is a cultural one. And to fix it, we must first confront the mindset that treats time as a negotiable and agents as optional. That's exactly what is happening. They think time is optional, time is negotiable. First, I would legislate time. No more pending. No more come back next week. Every registration process must be bound by law, not by mood. 7 working days for standard registration, 14 for complex cases. And if the deadline is missed, the system must explain, not excuse. Second, I would digitize decisively, not halfway, not ceremonially. A full digital corridor where entrepreneurs registered from anywhere track progress in real time and receive automated updates. No more paper trails that vanish. No more signatures that slip. They say you did not submit content. So I would stop that. Third, I would audit the silence. Every delay must be documented. Every desk must be accountable. Every officer must be visible, because silence is not neutral. It is negligence. Fourth, I would do centralized coordination. No more bouncing between ministries. No more fragmented approvals. One sovereign portal, unified process, one accountable timeline. Fifth, I would embed dignity. Entrepreneurs must be treated not as petitioners, but as partners. Their time is not a donation, it is a declaration. And every delay is a tax on their ambition, because registration is not a ritual, it is a runaway. And if we do not clear it, we will continue to watch our brightest minds take off elsewhere. Let us not just fix timelines, let us fix trust. Let us not just reform systems. Let us restore sovereignty.
Thank you, Professor. Do you think Eswatini is ready to embrace a digital-first approach to business compliance?
Thank you, Advocate. Readiness is not a mood, it is a mandate. And Eswatini must not wait to feel ready. It must decide to be ready. Because the question is not whether we can digitize. It is whether we will. The infrastructure exists. The talent exists. The agency is undeniable. What remains is political will and procedural courage. A digital-first approach is not a luxury. It is a lifeline. It is how we rescue entrepreneurs from corridors of confusion. It is how we replace silence with systems. It is how we convert waiting rooms into workspaces. Eswatini must move from paper to portal, from discretion to dashboard, from mood-based approvals to metric-based accountability. We must digitize registration, license, tax compliance, and inspection protocols. We must build sovereign platforms, not borrowed ones. We must ensure that every entrepreneur can track their progress, receive updates, escalate delays with dignity. Because digital is not just about speed, it is about sovereignty. It is how we protect time, how we preserve trust, how we position Eswatini as a follower, but as a continental forerunner. And let us be clear, digital transformation is not a threat to regulation. It is its salvation. It does not remove oversight, it refines it. It does not erase accountability, it enforces it. So yes, Advocate, Eswatini is ready. Not because the system is perfect, but because the cost of delay is now unbearable. And readiness in this moment is not about comfort. It is about courage. Let us digitize, not just for convenience, but for credibility.
Thank you, Professor. How do these licensing delays affect growth in key sectors like education, agriculture, tech, or tourism?
Thank you, Advocate. Licensing delays are not just administrative. They are architectural. They do not merely slow progress. They distort the very scaffolding of national development. In education, a new institution waits 12 months for licensing, while students wait for relevance. Curricula aligned with Education 6.0 are stalled, not because they lack rigor, but because the system lacks rhythm. This is not oversight. It is obstruction. In agriculture, cooperatives ready to revolutionize agri-tech are trapped in procedural limbo. They have the land, the tools, the talent, but not the license. And while the soil waits to be stigmatized, the system waits to be assessed. Food security is postponed, not by drought, but by delay. In technology, startups with fintech prototypes and automation platforms are forced to pause, not because they lack innovation, but because they lack clearance. And in a sector where relevance moves in seconds, a 12-month delay is not a hiccup, it is a hemorrhage. In tourism, ecologies, cultural corridors, and sovereign hospitality ventures are stalled. They meet every standard, but not every mood. And while the world seeks authentic African experiences, Eswatini's entrepreneurs wait for signatures. These delays do not just affect sectors, they affect sovereignty. They do not just frustrate, they fracture. They do not just postpone growth, they punish initiative. We must understand, licensing is not ceremonial, it is catalytic. And when it is delayed, the economy does not idle, it bleeds. Let us legislate timelines. Let us digitize approvals. Let us audit silence. Because Eswatini sectors are not waiting, they are withering. And the cost of delay is no longer procedural, it is existential.
Thank you, Professor. What accountability structures are missing that could help streamline the process?
Thank you, Advocate. The problem is not just delay. It is the absence of consequence. And I mean consequence. Because where there is no accountability, inefficiency becomes institutional. And where silence is never audited, systems learn to whisper instead of work. What is missing is the question. A time-bound mandate. We need legislation that binds every registration and licensing process to a timeline. 7 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Not inspirational, legal. 7 days must mean 7 days. 14 must mean 14. And if the deadline is missed, the system must explain, not excuse. A public dashboard of performance. Let every ministry, every officer, every desk be visible. Let citizens see who processes, who delays, who delivers. Because sunlight is not just transparency, it is transformation. A sovereign compliance commission, independent, audited, empowered, not just to monitor, but to intervene, to escalate unresolved applications, to penalize procedural negligence, to protect the entrepreneur from machinery meant to serve them. A feedback and escalation protocol. Every applicant must have the right to escalate, to challenge silence, to demand clarity, because bureaucracy must not be a fortress. It must be a service. A digital audit trail. Every click, every submission, every delay must be traceable. No more, we did not receive it. You did not submit content. No more, it's still under review. Let the system speak in timestamps, not in moods. Let us legislate consequence. Let us digitize visibility. Let us restore procedural dignity. Because without accountability, we do not have a system. We have a suggestion.
Thank you, Professor. Sometimes officials cite culture as a reason for delay. How do you respond to that framing?
Thank you, Advocate. Culture. The most convenient curtain behind which inefficiency hides. But let us be clear, culture is not a synonym for stagnation. It is not a license for delay. It is not a justification for procedural silence. Culture is sacred. Culture is sovereign. But when it is weaponized to excuse administrative inertia, it becomes a distortion, not a defense. When an entrepreneur waits 6 months for registration and is told this is how we do things, when a youth-led startup is stalled by silence and the system replies, we move slowly here. When a licensing officer delays feedback for a year and calls it our rhythm, we must ask, whose culture is this? Because the culture I know is one of hospitality, not hostility, of urgency, not apathy, of dignity, not delay. Let us not confuse tradition with obstruction. Let us not mistake heritage for hesitation. Let us not frame inefficiency as identity. Culture must evolve. It must serve the present without betraying the past. It must protect the entrepreneur, not punish them. It must scaffold innovation, not suffocate it. And if culture is invoked to defend delay, then it is time to recalibrate that culture. Because the future will not wait for our comfort zones. And sovereignty cannot be postponed for sentiment. Let us build a culture of clarity, a culture of consequence, a culture where systems speak, timelines matter, and ambition is not taxed by tradition. Culture is not the problem. Misuse of culture is.
Thank you, Professor. What's the actual economic cost of these inefficiencies? Can we quantify the damage?
Thank you, Advocate. Let us move from metaphor to metric, because inefficiency is not just inconvenient, it is expensive. And every delay, every silence, every procedural detour is a price tag. First, we lose time, and time is capital. A youth-led startup delayed by 12 months loses a full cycle of innovation. A cooperative stalled in registration forfeits seasonal revenue. A tech firm waiting for licensing misses market entry, investor confidence, and first mover advantage. Second, we lose talent. Entrepreneurs do not wait forever. They relocate. Ideas do not hibernate. They migrate. And every time a visionary leaves Eswatini for Botswana, Rwanda, or Mauritius, we export potential and import regret. Third, we lose trust. Investors measure risk in responsiveness, and when systems stall, portfolios shrink. Capital flows not to the promising, but to the predictable. Fourth, we lose jobs. Delayed businesses do not hire. Stalled cooperatives do not scale. And every licensing bottleneck is a missed employment opportunity. Fifth, we lose GDP. Studies across Africa show that bureaucratic inefficiencies can shave off up to 2 to 3% of national gross domestic product annually. That is not a rounding error. It is a rupture. Sixth, we lose reputation. Eswatini is branded as open for business, but if the process does not match the promise, the brand becomes brittle. And reputation, once fractured, is costly to restore. So yes, Advocate, we can quantify the damage, not just in currency, but in confidence, not just in numbers, but in narratives, not just in lost revenue, but in lost relevance. Let us not treat inefficiency as a nuisance. It is a national liability. And the cost of delay is no longer symbolic, it is systemic. Let us legislate agents. Let us digitize decisively and decisiveness. Let us audit silence. Because every minute lost to inefficiency is a minute lost from sovereignty.
Wow, this is amazing. Let's take a commercial break and stay tuned.
At Springfield Research University, we don't teach to pass exams, we encode futures. Grounded in Education 6.0 and powered by STEMMA, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, medicine and automation, we deliver modular, sovereign learning across undergraduate, master's and doctoral programs. Explore our prospectus, where every curriculum is designed to STEMatize every discipline, dignify local authorship, and credential transformative knowledge. Be STEMatized, be sovereign. Here, knowledge is authored, not borrowed. Curriculum is credentialed, not copied. Every graduate becomes an architect of transformation. With 2 annual intakes, March and September, the path to innovation is always open. From the logic of automation to the soul of indigenous intelligence, SRU is where tomorrow is designed. Springfield isn't just a university, it's an epicenter of epistemic dignity. Join the movement. Study where learning governs itself. Springfield Research University, the globe is here. Where are you?
Welcome back. Let's continue with our discussion. Are there regional peers or benchmarks Eswatini should be learning from or aspiring towards?
Thank you, Advocate. Yes. Eswatini must learn, not laterally, but strategically. Because benchmarking is not mimicry, it is mastery. And across Africa, sovereign examples are abound. Rwanda has digitized its entire business registration process. A company can be registered in under 24 hours, online, without stepping into a government office. No mood, no maze, just metrics. Kenya operates through e-citizen portal, where entrepreneurs register, pay fees, and track progress in real time. Licensing is not ceremonial, it is systemic. And the portal speaks in timestamps, not in tone. South Africa offers integrated registration through the Company Intellectual Property Commission, CIPC. Tax, labor, and common registration are bundled because fragmentation is inefficient. Mauritius ranks among the continent's most efficient economies for business setup. Its business registration bureau is not just a desk, it is a digital corridor. And its reputation attracts capital, not confusion. Nigeria, despite its scale, has streamlined its Tax Pro Mark system for online tax, remittance, and registration. Every complexity bows to clarity when the will is present. These are not just peers, they are prototypes. They do not just promise, they perform. And Eswatini must not envy them. It must emulate them. Because benchmarking is not betrayal of culture. It is the blueprint of reform. It is how we move from rhetoric to rhythm. From delay to delivery. From aspiration to architecture. Let Eswatini study Rwanda's agents, Kenya's coordination, South Africa's integration, Mauritius' elegance, Nigeria's scale. And let Springfield lead the recovery blast, because sovereignty begins with systems.
Thank you, Professor. Paint us a picture. What does a truly open for business Eswatini look like to you?
Thank you, Advocate. Let me paint it not in ink, but in infrastructure. Not in slogans, but in systems. Not in hope, but in architecture. A truly open for business Eswatini is not a billboard. It is a blueprint. It is a nation where registration takes hours, not months. Where an entrepreneur wakes up with an idea and sleeps with a certificate. When licensing is not a labyrinth, but a land, where every desk speaks in timelines and every portal responds in real time. It is a country where digital corridors replace paper trails, where ministries are not silos but synchronized, where entrepreneurship does not wander, they navigate, where feedback is not a favor, it is a feature. It is a land where youth-led startups are scaffolded, not stalled, where agri-tech cooperatives receive licenses before the rains arrive, where tech innovators launch platforms without procedural purgatory, where education institutions like Springfield are not ignored, they are invested in. It is a state where discretion is audited and silence is penalized, where accountability is not ceremonial, it is constitutional, where officials do not delay, they deliver. It is a kingdom where culture empowers, not excuses, where tradition walks hand in hand with transformation, where heritage is honored but never weaponized against progress. It is an Eswatini where investors do not guess, they trust. Where capital flows not because of charm, but because of clarity. Where reputation is not managed, it is earned. And above all, it is a nation where sovereignty is procedural, where ambition is not taxed by inefficiency. That advocate is what open for business must look like. Not a phrase, but a framework. Not a mood, but a mandate. Let us not just imagine it. Let us legislate it. Let us not just paint the picture. Let us build the reality.
Thank you, Professor. What advice would you offer to young entrepreneurs who are trying to navigate this system?
Thank you, Advocate. To the young entrepreneur, do not mistake delay for denial. Do not confuse silence with failure. Do not let the system shrink your spirit. You are not just building a business. You are confronting a bureaucracy. You are not just innovating. You are interrupting inertia. And that requires more than strategy. It requires stamina. First, document everything. Keep every receipt, every email, every timestamp, because in a system that forgets, your paper trail is your protection. They will say you did not submit content. Second, build networks, not just products. Find mentors, allies, and advocates, because sometimes access is not about merit, it is about momentum. And momentum is built in community. Don't walk alone. Third, escalate with dignity. If the process stalls, do not beg, petition. Do not plead, present. Use the language of law, the tone of clarity, and the posture of sovereignty. I have a lawyer here, mandamus them. Fourth, digitize your own discipline. Even if the system is analog, you must be agile, track your progress, automate your reminders, be more organized than the offices you face. We do it here. Fifth, stay visible. Speak at forums. Write opinion ads. Share your journey, because invisibility is the enemy of reform, and every story told is a system challenged. Sixth, build with patience, but not passive. Wait if you must, but never quietly. Pause if you must, but never permanently. Because your idea is not just a business, it is a blueprint for national transformation. And finally, remember your worth. You are not a petitioner, you are a pioneer. You are not asking for permission, you are offering a solution. Eswatini does not grow by ignoring you, it grows by enabling you. So build, persist, escalate, inspire. Because the system may be slow, but your vision is sovereign. Thank you, Advocate, for having me.
Thank you, President, for dissecting the myth of procedural openness with surgical clarity. Your insights remind us that true ease is not declared, it is delivered, and that every delayed license is a deferred livelihood. To our audience, if you are ready to build ecosystems of efficiency, not empires of paperwork, To digitize dignity and accelerate enterprise, Springfield Research University stands ready to credential your reformist ambition. Visit www.springfieldresearchuniversity.net and join the mission to operationalize institutional agility. That brings us to the end of this diagnostic edition of Springfield Career Insights. May tonight's dialogue sharpen your reform agenda and energize your execution. I am Clarence, your host. Good night.
Siyakupuga tikiti lefu tanza lunga